The Cleveland Browns proposed a $2.4 billion stadium in Brook Park. The ultra-modern domed stadium could finally pave the Browns' way to host the Super Bowl after 2029. However, before they can even hope of building a stadium, the Browns need to deal with a major problem they're facing now. If they don't, they might never build the new Huntington Bank Field. So, let's discuss it in today's episode of Built Up. A few years ago, the Cleveland Browns were talking with the mayor and the city of Cleveland for a major $1.2 billion renovation project of their downtown stadium, Huntington Bank Field. This stadium opened as Cleveland Browns Stadium in 1999 and cost the city $283 million to complete. They built it right on the shore of Lake Erie, with a capacity to seat 67,000 people inside an open-air stadium. However, the cold Cleveland winters and the winter exposure from Lake Erie resulted in constant maintenance issues within the stadium. At first, they wanted to renovate their original stadium and their official home. But there was a major problem. The cost of renovating the existing stadium was so high that they decided to move to a new location in Brook Park. The Browns believed this was a calculated move to set them up for future success. The new stadium, unlike the old stadium, which only has a 31-acre lot, the new Huntington Bank Field comes with a 176-acre lot. This space is a result of the raising of two Ford Motor plants, which would allow them to build a stadium along with a mixed-use complex. On top of that, Brook Park is located conveniently close to Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, which allows fans to fly in and catch the game in a matter of minutes. But this proximity of the stadium caused a handful of problems for the Browns. To comply with regulations from the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, they had to build the stadium about 80 feet into the ground. The architectural firm designing this project is HKS, which has been behind Inglewood SoFi Stadium in California, as well as the US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. For the Browns, they created this 67,500-seater stadium, which has the smallest upper deck in the NFL, and is also closer to the field than any other venue out there. It can seat a total of 14,000 fans at the top. At the same time, they have the largest lower bowl in the NFL, bringing a huge chunk of its fans closer to the action on the field. It can seat 22,500 fans, while the middle bowl comes with a seating capacity of 21,500. They eliminated much of the vertical transportation and gave the area back to the fans in the form of improved seating. It created a seating environment that's about the amplification of the energy and the sound of Browns' game day, said Lance Evans, the principal and director of venue design at HKS. To improve the fan experience even further, they created the Dog Pound, the safe standing section for 6,700 fans against the northwest end zone. Plus, the visiting team will both enter and exit the field at that end, so you can imagine the energy this will create. Now, during the game, they will include a state-of-the-art concourse, which will be an experience in itself. It will be where fans go to take food, drinks, and get energized pre-game. But this concourse is at grade, which means this area can be open to the public even when the team isn't playing a game, and the two plazas will flank the stadium on both sides. Now, before we move on to the next section, please don't forget to subscribe if you like the video so far. When you build a new stadium, especially a $2.4 billion one, you'd expect to get at least a couple of perks. That's just part of the job. And for the Cleveland Browns, these perks come in the form of a potential Super Bowl host. The Dome Stadium and the rest of the state-of-the-art amenities that surround the new stadium in Brook Park would make it the ideal candidate to host the Super Bowl in the future. We've been talking about amenities. That's kind of a vague word. So, to make things a little more specific, earlier this December, the Cleveland Browns shared their entire vision about Brook Park and the area surrounding the stadium. First off, they plan to have a total of 1,100 apartments inside the residential area. There would also be 2 upscale hotels for all of the tourists visiting the stadium, and then another 500,000 square feet of office space. To build the mixed-use development, the Haslam Sports Group said they would partner with a new developer called Lincoln Property Company. If you haven't heard of them, that's okay, but they have a stellar resume because they're the ones who built the mixed-use developments for the stadiums of both the Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers. But the 176-acre lot in Brook Park will have more than just a 67,000-seat stadium. Besides the hotels, the residential apartments, and the office space, the new stadium will also feature about 300,000 square feet of retail space. But this is not going to be just for outsider shops. The stadium operators want this half to be used for something called experimental retail. Besides the stores, restaurants, and cafes, the Browns plan to include a team store and incorporate a new design concept based on experience. Their goal is to make the stadium generate revenue year-round, not only during the games. Now, we should mention that Cleveland won't see the benefits of this stadium until 2029, and that's just for the first phase of the mixed-use space. And that's if everything goes according to plan and there are no delays or setbacks. Then Cleveland can marvel at the new fully finished stadium, but only 450 hotel rooms, another 575 apartments, and about 225,000 square feet of retail space. The remaining apartments, office space, hotel rooms, and retail space will be finished in the project's second phase. Now, this vision is bold to say the least, but the problem with the entire stadium is that the Browns didn't really announce their plans for financing this mega project, and this is where things start to get a little complicated. Recently, to help with the funding, the Browns completed a study that delved into how big of an economic impact this $2.4 billion project would have on the local community. They found out that once the stadium and the mixed-use facilities are fully complete, this mega project would generate $1.2 billion annually. And to achieve this, the stadium and the mixed-use space would create an additional 3,300 jobs for the local community. However, some officials from Cuyahoga County challenged this economic study released by the Browns, saying that the revenue generated won't be even close to that. Cleveland did practically the same thing when they released their own study, questioning the Brook Park project. According to Cleveland, not only would this study generate less revenue annually, but it would also take about $11 million in yearly tax revenue the Browns are currently paying for the stadium in Cleveland. And this is just part of the problem. The bigger problem comes from funding. It's fun to create revenue projections and construction timelines, but when it comes to building the stadium, things start to quickly fall apart. Ever since announcing the project, the Browns keep dodging to answer who will fund the project and how. The team envisions state taxpayers to cover half of the stadium's cost, or $700 million, since the stadium alone would cost $1.4 billion to build. And then another $1 billion or more would be spent building the surrounding mixed-use development, bringing the total to $2.4 billion. According to Peter John Baptiste, a spokesperson for the Browns, the public money would be generated primarily from taxes generated by the project. But here's the problem with this plan. It's not a plan, it's an assumption. The Browns are assuming that taxpayers will cover half of the stadium's cost, but there's no evidence to support this assumption. Cuyahoga County was loud and clear in their decision not to fund the Browns stadium, and it's wishful thinking to assume that lawmakers will spend hundreds of millions of state tax dollars to fund a stadium. Historically speaking, stadiums are horrible at generating revenue. That being said, if the Browns manage to overcome the funding issue and the taxpayers agree to front the stadium's cost, then the Browns will become easy contenders for the Super Bowl host after 2029. Especially since Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb openly said, "If the Browns don't see a viable path to ink the deal in Brook Park, we stand ready with open arms to find a way to get the deal done in Cleveland, but in a competitive and responsible way for our residents and taxpayers." But do you think the Browns will succeed in building a massive stadium like this? Let us know in the comments down below. Now, here's another video mega project enthusiasts enjoyed watching. Bye for now.